Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasevich.
Welcome everyone to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. This is episode 264, and I think I got that right, with myself, Jim Fuhs, and this week's guest is Diana Gladney. And we've got a lot of great social media news talk we are going to be discussing with you this week. There was actually quite a bit of news. In particular, we're going to talk about Instagram Live video badges. This is a new feature. It's a way for you to monetize your Instagram Live presence. So we're going to talk about that. We've also got some other enhancements from Instagram. For example, they're going to be expanding IGTV ads. We've got some LinkedIn event news. And also, as usual, we've got a lot of Facebook news as well. And we're going to also talk with Diana at some point during the show about monetizing your live video presence, obviously with Instagram Live badges. You want to make sure you're trying to monetize yourself on a number of the platforms, but we're going to get some tips and advice from her. But I'm going to go and bring on Jem. Jem, it is fantastic to see you again.
Great to see you, Christian. How's everything going?
Doing fantastic. I know we were doing a podcast recording earlier this week, and I know we published a new episode of the Launch Your Live podcast that we co-host. But everything good on your end?
Yeah, I've been playing around with Ecamm. Really like some of the stuff you can do with the virtual cam, even within StreamYard. Really just gives you some ways to up your video game. And I will say that our guest Diana Gladney is one of those people that opened my eyes. And yeah, and isn't it funny that the podcast recording we did on Monday, which will actually also be a YouTube video in a couple weeks, was with Diana. So what a treat to get to speak with Diana twice in a week, because I will tell you, I've become a huge fan. And let's bring her on and get things going.
Definitely, yeah, because we got a lot to talk about, but we want to make sure we also spend time talking with her. So I'm going to go and bring, yeah, there we go. So we got Diana. Diana, it's great to have you back. I mean, we just talked to you, like 2-3 days ago?
Right. I think it's been about 2 days, so it just enough to make you feel like it was yesterday.
Well, we never know what day it is anymore, right?
That's right. We just
world
just make sure you're not wearing the same underclothes and you're good to go.
So for viewers who've not met you or heard about you, you want to tell people a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Diana Gladney, a native out of St. Louis, Missouri. I've been involved in the video space for about 4 years now and started just like everybody else did, probably a little bit behind where everybody else did, because I was one of those people that did not think the selfie stick was the thing. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And I'm just, I'm like, I would never use, and now I have more selfie sticks than I care to admit that I own. However, fast forward, here I am now, full-time entrepreneur, video content creator, and video strategist, helping people become visible using video. And I just think it is the best medium, where we have podcasts, we have blogs, and all those things are great. All those mediums are needed. But when it comes to video, I just believe that is the best way to communicate your message and your brand. And I help people amplify their brand using video.
Fantastic. So I know we're going to talk more with you later on about monetizing your live presence. But Jim, you want to kick things off? I know we had a lot of topics we wanted to discuss with everyone today, but you ready to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing we wanted to talk about was Instagram is bringing badges in live to more creators. And I guess, I was asleep at the Instagram switch, because it's not a platform that I spend a ton of time on, but they started these badges. And this is really quite fascinating, because I think a lot of these platforms are doing it. I know Facebook, I think, has, like, you can buy these stars. And obviously YouTube has its stuff with like super chat and things of that nature. So I think this is one, it's a great idea. It helps people monetize, and it also, as a creator, really lets you know who are your as we like to say, the Pat Flynn phrase, super fans
Mm.
that you really want to engage with. So, yeah, I think this is pretty fascinating. I mean, what do you think, Diana?
I think it's awesome because everybody wants to interact, like especially when you find a creator that you really enjoy, whatever it is that they're producing, their personality, or just really kind of hanging with them online. After a certain amount of time, people just want to kind of take that relationship deeper. And I think that things like this, while they may seem insignificant, because like, well, what's the difference? Like a sticker, a badge, a super chat, like, does it matter? And to your audience, it actually really does because it's a way for them to support you. Feel like they have to give back what they really don't, but they just want to give into what it is that you're doing. So I think it's amazing to let people have some kind of recognition and be able to support you as well in your community, because you got to think they're watching hours and hours and hours of your content online and wanting to engage with you. Why not let them support and give in if they want to?
Right. And Christian, what do you think?
I think this is a well. I think the first thing I think I really like about this is the fact that Instagram's actually not take cut of this for a while, which is really nice. So if you're somebody who wants to get into using this, they're not taking cut of it. So I think it means it's a little more money in your pocket. I like the fact though they're starting to roll these features. I mean, I think they make a lot of sense. I mean, people can. I think it's up to like $4.99. I think people can pay. Which I think is really good. They've rolled this out internationally to 50,000 creators. So, while not everybody will get this necessarily, I think this is one thing to watch, actually. So if there's some big channels that you're used to tuning into, maybe check them out and see how they're using the Instagram Live badges. And this way, when you do get access to it, that it will actually be something you can then implement right then and there. So I like this feature. I think it's a good move by Instagram. I think overall, I like actually that they're starting to move things out at Instagram as well. So that way it keeps people on the platform and people have a reason to actually use the platform.
Yeah, and I think Instagram is continuing to do things, and obviously owned by Facebook. There's some integrations. We'll be talking a little bit about that a little bit later on in the show. But this is this whole thing of they're big enough, large enough, have the resources to be that behemoth that this is their way of competing with TikTok, right? What can we
Mm.
do to keep people on the platform, to make people, as anytime you're in a sense monetizing things for people that are spending that time creating this great short form content, is going to catch their attention. So I think this is a good move by them. Kind of goes in line with what they're doing with Reels. And, you know, when you think of it in the big scheme of things, uh, you know, you're on rented land, but now they're giving you a chance to maybe earn your rent a little bit.
I think that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense there. Anything else you want to add, by the way, about the badges feature? I mean, in order to get this, obviously, it's you have to be with creators that obviously is within that 50,000. What do you think? Anything else? Anything new here? Anything business that you think a business should start doing now to try to take advantage of badges?
Well, I don't know like you said, because it's such a small group, in a sense, because I mean, there's over 1 billion people on Instagram. But this kind of gets into the whole idea of influencers and micro influencers. Is maybe as a business, look for those people that have badges, and if they align with your business, maybe start working with them. And like I know Diana's has taken over the Ecamm community before, and our friend
Mhm.
Rob Balasabas as well. So maybe you have them take over your channel for a day and get some of their people over on your Instagram channel. So that's something I would maybe take a look at.
What do you all think as far as authenticity, by the way, as far as supporting someone, for instance, via the Instagram Live badges, for example? And what I mean by that is if people, for example, if I go live and let's say I'm like, because then it's up to me as the creator. If I decide, hey, you know what, I want to give somebody a shout out using, for making some sort of support, like, should I mean, I know the answer to this, but should people still engage with their fans, for example, even though they're not being supported? Because I know that's a very slippery slope. I think a lot of people might look at it and say, well, hey, I'm only going to shout out all the people that are paying me versus not paying me. What's your take on that? And maybe Diana.
I think it's very interesting because one thing that anytime a new monetization format or even type of content comes out, you'll always see who's just doing it for the quick peak, real quick, to see what's happening, and then you'll see those that have already kind of been dedicated to their community on the platform, just kind of integrate that normally. I think if it stands out if you are now one, we're talking about different variances in audience sizes. Sometimes that helps to designate between those that are paying to get to the top of the feed or be pinned for a amount of time, something similar to a super chat. It helps you to be able to drive that conversation in some ways. It can be helpful, especially when you have some of these larger creators that if you're trying to keep up with the scroll, even if you're just a viewer, it's very hard to keep up with it. So it makes it, in some respects, easy for them to be able to navigate the conversation or integrate certain ones. And what I found to work best is that, yes, if you're somebody that's supporting and you're given a badge, then it's like, okay, well, that helps me to be able to better know who to point out, not just for, a quick shout out, but to really highlight that question and to dive deeper into it, because chances are other people have that question as well. And so it could be used as a point of engagement, but it's very easy to point out those who are really not already active in that way or engaging with their community already. And then all of a sudden they're just like, pay me or you don't get any attention from me. That kind of gives off the wrong vibe. So I think it's easy for a community to know what kind of person they're following, because they don't tend to follow that person much longer after one of these kind of rollouts. So you'll see kind of like a dip and then a eventual resurgence when it comes to their numbers and things like that. So it's very easy to point out those who, just like when you first, get to the point you get into YouTube monetization, everybody knows it's like super chats become available, but is your community educated about how that works? Are they comfortable with that? If you're constantly just push, pay, then
Right.
they'll instantly know what kind of a person you are with more access to getting money from them versus whatever, because people that freely want to give or want to, you won't have to ask them or beg them or, really push them to do it. They will give of their own accord. So it'll speak more about the creator than it will the community.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
one angle I guess I want to take on that real quick is, a lot of people, they look at celebrities as their measuring stick, I guess. And I guess, for something like this, I mean, if you're going to launch badges your live videos, I kind of think that they need to find someone else to potentially use as their measuring stick, not the celebrity, for example, because the celebrity is already getting a whole bunch of benefits, all that sort of stuff, and they're typically not disclosing a lot of that information, even though they should be. In a way, almost like changing the angle a little bit and saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to be more giving, and in return, over time, I might potentially generate some revenue off of this, for example, but maybe not go in there with like that mentality of like, oh, you've got to pay me for this, otherwise I'm not going to talk to you or mention you and whatnot. Anything else you want to add on this, Jim, before we move on to the next
Yeah,
topic?
I think we, and I love what Diana said. I mean, right, eventually you're going to see who's really the genuine creators, and I think ultimately you want to engage with all your audience and not just those people that are paying. I mean, if you really want to do the paid thing, I would almost say, why not have a program like Patreon where you're actually rewarding people for
Mhm.
what they're paying for, as opposed to like, okay, if you pay while I'm doing this live, I'm going to talk about you. If not, you're not, because those people, it's like, well, if this person's not going to engage with me, why am I going to continue to support them? So I think that's really important for creators to keep in mind and not let money be the drive of all this.
Of course. Mhm. Got it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah.
So,
So let's stick with Instagram, and we now see that Instagram is not only this article not only talks about that, but IGTV, and let me see if I can come down and find that part in here. Is doing test ads for creators, and so you can run ads alongside their videos, and that right now, kind of to your point earlier, creators are going to keep at least 55% of that revenue, um, and then they were testing it as well with a small group of creators. I mean, I find it fascinating from the perspective of, I think even now, if you ask people, do you know what Instagram TV is? You still kind of get this, what? Um, So I think, maybe by running ads on it, maybe they're thinking that's going to get more visibility for the IGTV platform. I still feel, and I know Diana with her Entree Woman TV channel probably may feel the same way. This is their continue to try to be YouTube by creating IGTV and allowing for landscape videos. So, I mean, it might work. To me, I think the jury is still out on IGTV in general as a platform. I mean, what are your thoughts, Diane?
I think as a platform, it has to be. It's a niche platform in essence. Everybody would love to have like the longevity, the evergreenness of like the YouTube, the way people search. You'll watch videos that are super old, whereas on other platform, like in an earlier podcast, we talked about like social behaviors. Well, if somebody's normal social behavior when they log into Instagram is to perform certain functions, you're disrupting that pattern that they're used to doing and trying to, with that pattern interrupt, trying to introduce something else for them to integrate, which already, even if you're trying to do anything, is something that takes time to develop. However, I think it's important for some of these companies to be aware of when they're introducing some of these new tools like an IGTV. It's not going to have, if the normal social behaviors, the normal social essence that people are going to a specific platform, like their intentions of what they're going to do when they sign in, if that's not going to be to search for a specific topic, like you would the search engine on YouTube, then let's find where our jelly is. Let's figure out where it is something that really is it's just really engaging with them. So the fact that they're introducing ads, it's interesting. I think it's again another now secondary, another layer of a pattern interrupt. I think it's kind of a misstep there because we have to know why are ads being placed before or like those in between ads on another platform, and if we introduce this, how is this going to work? Because I am willing to go through an ad on a YouTube, on some other platform. Mainly, let's just stick with the YouTube, make it easy. Then, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for the content and the information. I'm not willing to do that on Instagram because what is making generally somebody's social behavior want to engage with something that's on an IGTV, something that's going to extend past 30 seconds. Now it's going into rolling over into longer form content up to 60 minutes is based on the creator, not necessarily based on the topic. They didn't search for something. They started seeing, watching, and engaging with somebody they were already following potentially. And now they want to continue. You disrupt that. Maybe it wasn't that important for me to keep watching anyway. I just wanted to see what else. The fact now I'm being forced to endure this, it's not that big of a deal. I can scroll. So it kind of lends to that whole are you clickable or are you scrollable mentality like I teach with my clients and stuff. And so it's interesting. I don't think its placement is proper at the moment. I think they're trying to test like any entrepreneur should what's working and what's not. I think they'll probably end up changing it. If I was to give like a prediction, to find some other method and mode of being able to place ads, being able to do something, but not in that IGTV format. Because if the intention is to keep people on the platform longer, engaging with creators and content longer, there are some places that you should not introduce a pattern interrupt. And I think that conversion from the scrolling news feed, you captured their attention, which is always the first win in video, and now we need to keep them. We're creating and introducing a step in between there that's really unnecessary. Whereas if we did it a little bit longer, now I'm deeper into it and I have more of a reason to keep watching versus those first 30 seconds. It's just like, it's not that big of a deal. I'll keep scrolling. They don't do that on YouTube. So they're trying to do this on Instagram now for the IGTV with ads. I don't think it's going to work so well.
Well, and they also, to me, you've got this whole aspect of, Instagram went from the feed to stories. Now they've added reels. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like, in a sense, you're giving me too many choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of the beauty of YouTube. YouTube is video. Sure, they've got stories, but I don't know if I've ever seen a YouTube story, but I've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably just not looking at the right place. But it's like if you give people too many choices, they won't choose anything. And so it's kind of like if I'm going because I want to check out reels, I can kind of just go through the reels feed or the stories feed. But you're right. It's like if I'm on there trying to do one thing and you distract me, then I'm going to be like, oh, that really wasn't the experience that I expected. And I love how you talk about that. There really is this true psychology of the platforms that we really have to keep in mind as a business owner, especially, and not just in a sense be chasing the shiny objects because we think it's going to move the needle.
Yeah, I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, they get confused with how do I use some of these different platforms. So, like us being on the topic of Instagram, when we're looking at a creator, I think if we're looking at it from a holistic approach versus individual things, just like IGTV started off as a second app as if it was going to be its own long form, evergreen content platform. That didn't work. They had to integrate it, and that's because when people are their normal social behaviors when they're on Instagram, if they're following you, they want to follow and they're going to certain aspects for different reasons. So I think that if we're looking at it as an entrepreneur from a holistic approach, your news feeds and the things that you're posting, like those 30-second clips, for example, if they're square, that could be some content that you're producing. If it needs to be longer, it's now transitioning into IGTV. That's just a continuation of them being interested. If they want to see what you're doing on a day to day, because stories are only 24 hours, they have the ability to engage with you on a daily basis. And then I think Reels is something like, if you're especially a business, it's now easy to integrate this into a holistic process instead of trying to figure out individual strategies, because I don't think that's the right approach. I think if you're looking at something like Reels, what is a quick hit, 15-second, 30-second win in tall formed content that I can do and share with them that is part of the holistic process and the meal, if you will, of Instagram. If we're looking at it like either it's a number one, a number two, a number three, or number four on a fast food menu, I think that's the wrong approach. We need to look at it as a 3 to 4 course meal where this is the appetizer, this is what you're going to get, this is the breadsticks on the table, here's the the salad, and then here's the meal. As far as like content strategy, if you're looking at Instagram from like a video or content strategy, I think it's better to integrate those different aspects of the platform versus individually trying to have just singular strategies per medium.
Absolutely. So, Christian, what are your thoughts on all this?
I've been mesmerized actually by just what Diana's been saying about, just the strategies and just, the way Instagram is trying to run ads. I mean, I kind of think that IGTV ads, I mean, I'm glad they're testing them, but I also feel like I'm glad they're doing all this testing, but I feel like it's just a lot of like, throw it against the wall, see what sticks, throw it against the wall, see what sticks. And then it's for the end user, I just think that it's way too much for them to take in, because for the most part, most of them, and this is a general assumption, but I think a lot of businesses don't have a strategy or a sound strategy. And so they're trying to do something. And for that, I mean, I feel like we're like way up here and what most people are doing is still way down here. So I'm glad they're testing ads, but I think they'll have a long way to go. I mean, they got to get people, to want to go to, and again, like they have to get them to think of, like you said, if they want video content, they go to YouTube. You've got to get a whole mindset shift going to get people to use IGTV to then get those ads to actually see some success. I think that's my takeaway here. So,
well, and it's funny sometimes if you think to me of the simple things that I think people would love is like, how about letting me do Instagram completely functional on my desktop because maybe I don't want to have to do everything from my phone, or how about let me live stream from a third party tool so that my video can be even better. But no, let's throw all these other shiny objects out there instead of just the basics that would make people happy. But that's just me speaking. What do I know?
I think, I think that's one of those unique selling propositions that like Instagram has that, invite, where in retrospect now, it's like when you look at stories after YouTube integrated it, it didn't work as well as they thought it would. And people aren't using it in the way that they thought, in that, they put it out there to say, hey, use it just like this. And the creators on YouTube say, no, we're going to use it like this. So, I think that's one of their unique selling propositions to make it something that's easy, and like you have to be present in a certain kind of a way for you to be able to get tall and vertical video versus, something that's super well produced. Because I honestly think entrepreneurs would mess that up if they did allow you to, you would do the same thing like that everybody else is doing when it comes to other stuff. I'm going to restream the heck out of everything and I'm going to 72 different locations, not really giving anybody specific attention on one. So I think entrepreneurs, they completely screw that up if they did allow to live stream. So I think it's kind of like a unique selling proposition. That's so much from mobile, in some respects being mobile only. I actually don't mind so much.
Fair enough.
But it still comes down to strategy. I mean, the bottom line is it still comes down to having a sound strategy of sorts to know, and because otherwise it's just like, hey, you can set up all these little tiny vehicles, but some of them are going to move and other ones you're going to spend so much more time on it and you're not going to get much value out of it, I think, or much return, I think.
Yeah.
That's one of the challenges I see.
Yeah. So,
okay, so
ready to move on to the next topic?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
All right. So LinkedIn, as they continue to do things, is bringing some new stuff into events, which I think is, it's a great move on their part. I mean, I still think sometimes people don't realize that events are out there, but they're adding some features into events to help you grow. I would play the video, but I know we had Facebook didn't like the last time we played a video. But it's, the virtual events has become a bigger thing. You can, go LinkedIn Live from an event, but you can also put links to your other live streaming destinations. So it's really becoming a bigger thing with the virtual world. So obviously inviting things, but they're also now letting you collect leads from the event signups, which I think is huge for people, because a lot of times what we're really talking about is, sure, you might have a connection, but if you got people inviting people to your event and you're not a first level connection, you don't necessarily get their information. You can now promote it with sponsored content. A lot of people don't realize the power of LinkedIn ads. Sure, it might be a little bit pricier than, say, Facebook or Instagram, but you can get very targeted. I know that AJ Wilcox is a great guy to follow in that regards. And, and then you can also retarget, right? Retarget your event attendees. I mean, that's another very powerful feature as well. So I think this is exciting, but I know we're talking about LinkedIn events, but can we fix LinkedIn groups, please?
Everybody's silent and very loud in verbal prayer.
Right. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this, Diana?
I think it's right on time, because LinkedIn for the longest time felt like super outdated, or it's just like, well, I'm not looking for a job, so I'm not on there, kind of a deal. And I think now the more that they lean into like their identity as a social platform, I think the more that people will embrace it in the way that they're hoping that people would. And I think that this is absolutely brilliant, because this lifts the pressure that employees would have to do. Like, if you can get yourself to have a full scale entrepreneurial employee, meaning they take ownership of the company and they're taking ownership of the work, they would absolutely love to host an event, or you're taking certain parts, or maybe you're integrating like pre-recorded videos, even from a phone, and taking them around the office, even if it's closed, or you're showing pictures from previous years. I think it's a great way to start building for like next year, especially like as we're into the close of 2020, moving into 2021. Companies have their goals for this quarter and then for the first quarter of the year. And I think events is a great way to do that, to start exposing more people to your brand, start hosting different things, and really start to get people excited about your company and learning more about it. And so I think it's just kind of like right on time for like where people are. Everybody has more internet access now, whatever stuff they didn't have at the beginning of 2020. More people have the equipment to kind of be on the platform now. So I think it's a really brilliant idea.
And Christian, what are your thoughts?
I think the timing is right on this. I mean, just the fact that they're making it easy as well. So the fact that, now you can collect event signee email addresses. And again, and maybe I shouldn't say the word collect, because you don't really just collect and hold on to all those email addresses. You want to actually do something with them. But, it's a good way to move them down the funnel. So for example, they're rolling out organic discovery with personalized event recommendations. So that way it'll encourage people to go see events, for example, that they may not have known about, obviously, provided they go to the My Network tab. But then with that, if they're going to run, so it will help them get those email addresses, so they're not going to have to use any of those spammy third-party Google Chrome extensions.
Yeah.
We can collect your email address for all your LinkedIn contacts or LinkedIn people. So you're not going to have to do that. You're not going to have to pay for an expensive CRM tool necessarily. Nothing against CRM tools, but you're not going to have to pay for some of the ones that claimed, well, hey, I can get your email address. If you're running a good quality event, you shouldn't have to necessarily pay for that sort of tool. The fact that you can then promote your event, sponsored content, and again, the retargeting aspect. So it's like the whole, it's the whole circle there, basically, with things coming full circle. So I love the whole idea of all these updates from LinkedIn. And again, I've said this for years on social chat. It's the fact that LinkedIn and Pinterest, there are dark horse social media sites or platforms, and people always, I don't say forget about them, but they aren't Facebook and Instagram. They're very different. They have a very different way of running things, and they do a really good job at that. And so, if you're business minded, LinkedIn is definitely something you should be trying to focus on. I know, Jem, to your point, you said, hey, well, LinkedIn ads, they're a little bit more pricey, and yes, they are, but it's like advertising. Okay. So it is advertising, but it's advertising like in old school way. So for example, somebody could go and print a flyer, and they can take it out and they can staple it to all the telephone poles and put them in store windows and whatnot. But if you're not in the right, and if that's not your customer, for example, yes, you can do all of that and you can get cheap ways to produce that. But if your customer, for example, is on the high end side, maybe you want to be, advertising where they're hanging out, which might be, high end magazines like the Robb Report and places like that. So this way you're getting your information in front of the right customer and in the right place. It's going to cost you more, but you're making sure you're hitting the mark much better than going with the low cost option. So I love this. I really do. Jem, anything else to add on the whole LinkedIn events updates?
No, I just think I think if anything, companies and even individuals, because you can set up an event as an individual, really check into this. I mean, a lot of times I know people are like, oh, I want to do a Facebook event, but this allows you to literally invite those first level connections, and they can invite their connections. And, it's just like Diana said, you can put, videos in there, maybe talking about what you got coming up. Even with LinkedIn Live, you can actually create an event and go live in the event, as your profile on a company's event page, and only the people that get invited get to see it. So it's really a great way to kind of have that content growth as well. So I think this is a great aspect of LinkedIn that just a lot of people are missing out on. But I think we have time maybe for one more topic, Christian, before we get to questions.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we got one more topic. What do you want to?
So I'm kind of a geek at heart, and so I'm excited that Facebook is relaunching Spark AR Partner Network, and I think this is timely because they just came out with Oculus Quest 2, and this is an area where I think businesses really need to be paying attention. I'm not saying they need to jump in right now, but both augmented and virtual reality is really going to continue to grow. It really allows for a lot of creativity. I mean, so I mean, they've been working on this kind of in the, in the dark here, I think, for a couple of years now from when they first put it out, but now they're really ready to start to ramp it back up. So I think this is a great idea for them. I mean, even sometimes, right, you can take your photos on Facebook and make them into a 3D effect, and people always like, "Ooh, that's really cool. How'd you do that?" So I think this is great in a lot of regards.
So what is this? I guess exactly. Can you maybe explain the Spark AR port to people? Like, what is this? I mean, I'm glad they're relaunching it, but what is it exactly?
Yeah, so it's a marketplace where you're taking these AR projects. There's over 400,000 creators, and people are building, careers, businesses over this. And so this marketplace, so as an example, maybe I want to have a a 3D animated object that talks to you when you visit my Facebook page or whatever. So it's just really giving you a chance, and I think they give us, like even as an example, you could take a look at some sunglasses, uh, and it'll show all the angles of it. It'll spin it around, and so it's really a way to highlight. We're seeing things at all angles and not just that 2D or 3D image, and so and you could just add a lot of creativity to it. So this is really like a whole new world for people. Uh, and they're also educating people as well so that they can become these creators. So I think it's
Mhm.
like it's going to be a whole new and especially now, right? Or as my friend Tim says, now more than ever, here's an opportunity for people that are looking for something new to do,
Right.
get in on the ground floor of this. So yeah, so that's really what I see as a big part of it. And a lot of these companies, this is where companies like Adobe and Apple and so many are getting into this big time.
Hmm. Definitely. And to your point, um, it's not something that people should just like, hey, oh, let me rush in and do this. Like if you're, for example, if you're not, programmer, for example, you're not really the augmented reality, or your customers aren't even there. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying, well, maybe don't do it yet, because you want to make sure you're spending your time meeting your customers' needs. And so, for example, if your customers aren't into AR, or they're, or they struggle with technology, for example, AR is going to be like, you're kind of just going to spin your wheels there, I think. But I love this, and I'd say Snapchat's well, let me say Snapchat has been in this for quite a
Hmm.
while. When they made their switch a number of years ago to just a camera company, that's a really big move by them. So I like this. I can tell you right now, Apple, for example, they're gonna probably get into this very soon. Then you'll have Microsoft pile in. Obviously, Google will probably maybe have something with Google Glass at some point. But I like the Spark AR feature. Definitely something worth checking out, or at least just to know, about that. Hey, it's coming down the pipe. Diana,
That,
anything else you want
yeah.
to add?
Only thing I'd probably add is that I think this is like next level, like events. When you're talking about integrating, as soon as somebody simplifies how people can use and see these things, like the little bits that we've seen, like with Instagram stories, that we've seen
Mm-hmm.
with Snapchat and stuff like that, the
Yep.
better that people are able to integrate this, like for ease of use for the the regular everyday Joe, the more that everybody else can start to see themselves using it and will be early adopters or easily adopted to it. But we're talking about like next level customer service, next levels events, because now it's not just, hey, add a static badge, image badge for an event. It's really getting engaged in this other environment within this niche environment of, like, if you're going to social media marketing world or something, now this is that next level. Hey, when you got time or you're taking a photo with your friends, do this and we'll add it to X, so that you can, it's like, it's just really next level. So even if you are a virtual attendee, for example, you're still getting a 4D, 8D feels like, type of environmental engagement. And the more we can like really start to get people involved in this, I think just the better it will be, because it'll remove some buffers that it's hard to explain in a written blog post. It's hard to just talk about, but really show them as best as you can from a distance, and get them a certain kind of experience. So I think it has a lot of possibilities. I hope that it just kind of takes off this time in a better way, but we just need more people to kind of simplify it in a way that people can see themselves using it more regularly. And then from there, sky's the limit.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point, Diana, because the other thing is that because of the investment to make this stuff happen, this is really like the early times of it, and you're going to see things kind of come and go until you get there. But with the advances in technology, I think Moore's law, uh, goodness knows how quickly things are advancing now. Uh, I think it's a lot closer than we realize. And to Christian's point, though, like, I'll just say people older than me and some people that are my age might have a real hard time with this. But I think the younger generation, they're already kind of used to it and are excited about the concepts of what can be done with this.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the smartest thing right now, if like you have a corporation and you're talking about trying to really, really future proof, find your favorite 10-year-old that wants to code, that wants to, find your favorite 14, 15-year-old that's already into coding, pay for them to have access and let them teach because it's easier, that way when they turn 18 that day, you already have somebody that's well knowledgeable, experienced, and you paid, let's say, for their education in this, or it's like I just think it's like everybody has that super nerdy tech friend. I seem to be that person in seems like all my circles, that
Yeah.
they're asking questions to, or what about this and how do you do that? And then there's children or preteens that are into it. Like, go ahead and start investing in like in your local communities or where are like already start. I would even set up like a little three computer thing where we make it available in our company for people to come and learn how to do this. And that way you're not only making it so that your brand is staying up to date, but you're also giving access for people to learn how to use this. And I don't like that'll absolutely return. Just like right now, it's hard to say what it would return, but I think it'll absolutely pay off in the long run.
Definitely. And I love the point there. I mean, so if you want to get started in something, you don't have to go all like you hear people like, like go all in on something. And it's like, well, like it's like video, go all in on live video, but it doesn't mean, oh, I have to go buy all this equipment, that I may not ever use, that'll just sit there. Instead, it's let me take a couple of steps in, wade into the water. For example, if it's Spark AR, wade into the water, whether it's, like, hey, let me follow some people. Let me just join some communities and, see what people are talking about. If it's like geek speak, for example, a tech guy in most of my circles as well, and if it's geek speak, then like, oh, hey, maybe it's not for me yet. If it's things that start to make you like, you get really excited about it, well then, okay, let me wait a little bit further in and a little bit further in. And then, hey, maybe I'll start coding something. Maybe I'll start testing some things, and see what actually, like what I can actually make out of it. Because, that's the one thing, like there are people that they get into an industry and they're like brand new to it. And it does take them some time. And the great thing, some of them, when they do get invested in it and they start to see the value in it, then like they really are like, it opens their eyes to things that they may not have been familiar with. So
absolutely
awesome. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to switch gears. We got the second act, I guess, of social chatter, and that's where I know, Jim, I was trying to figure out what do I say here. We got the second act, and that's where we're gonna talk with Diana about monetizing live video. I know Jem mentioned at the beginning of the show that she's big on YouTube, but today we talk about Instagram live badges. So what we want to do is we want to talk with her about monetizing live video. And so I got a couple of questions for you. Are you good with that, Diana?
Yeah, let's fire away.
Okay, perfect. And we'll make sure we get these written up in the blog post as well. So we'll get some bullet points from her. So Diana, so we talked about Instagram live badges today for creators, and it's a great way to monetize your Instagram channel. But are there 3 ways maybe beyond Instagram live badges to help you monetize your Instagram channel that you can think of?
I think if you're trying to monetize your Instagram, like let's just call it a network, because we have so many different tools. You have the news feed, it's 30-second posts or images, IGTV, IG stories, reels, and now you have badges. Like you have all of these different things. So if you're trying to create a monetization strategy, you still need to have a holistic approach of how you're moving into it. If you start trying to monetize any one specific thing, then you're creating almost like a dead end, because what if they say no? If you're only giving people an option for them to say yes or no, you're kind of leaving it a closed-ended question. If they say no, then that's the end of that funnel. That's the end of that logic, if you will, logic chain. However, if you're creating a holistic approach, you need multiple variations and reasons for people to say yes, be in a position to give you money, see what it is that you do. So the easier that you make it for people to find out not only how to do business with you, but more importantly, what you offer. So I think the number one thing is to make it very clear what it is that you offer. If people don't know how to buy what you have, if they don't know what you have, they definitely can't buy it. And if they don't know how to do business with you, then they definitely can't buy it. So just saying, hey, well, let's drop, if you give a badge and pay for a badge, then I'll shout you out. That's one thing. Think multiplicity, not just singularity. And so that's the one thing. The second thing is that know how you're sharing your tools and if that's effective or not. So have some way to really check and measure your metrics. That way you'll know if a certain strategy and a specific, logic chain, if you will, of how you're introducing this and trying to get money is working or not. It's easy to just say, hey, link in the bio, and then have a tool that connects them to the thing so that they can buy. That's fine. But if you haven't already been creating some type of consistent story and theme, then it won't work. The one thing that everybody fails to mention in their company is that they think they are the number one, like in everybody's brain. Well, I've already shared it these many times, and the same is true on social media, as it was like when it comes to Facebook ads and how many touch points that it requires before somebody's willing to take a next step. And so if you're not sure on what those next steps are, every logic chain that you're creating in your holistic social strategy, if that does not produce some type of way for people to, again, find out who you are, what you're doing, and how they can do business with you, you're not constantly showing up, you're missing the boat. So if you're trying to create money, you need to understand why they would give you money to begin with. They have so many other people to do business with on Instagram, and Instagram ads are extremely accurate, and it's easier for them to say yes there. So either it needs to, one, be something that's an instant yes, problem solved product, like, hey, you've been looking for X, Y, and Z insole because you're a hiker and you follow a lot of hiking platforms and, creators. Here's something that, helps you from, getting bruised feet or bruised toes. That's an instant answer to a very simple problem. So have those in mind. Second thing is have those more complex things in mind. If it's not, like you're doing digital marketing, for example, and that you're a consultant. Okay, it makes it a little bit harder for people to say yes. So start creating a progressive story, if you will. Here's my client, Susan. Susan had issues understanding the difference between YouTube ads, Instagram ads, and Facebook ads. Like all of these steps, all of these different layers are different ways of engaging with the audience so that they aren't having to say yes on this one. Maybe they're saying yes on that fourth or fifth post. So these are all individual posts. So that way, by the time they get to post 4 or 5, because either you're clickable or scroll pastable, they're doing this constantly. Maybe they're scrolling a little bit faster. But if they're doing like this, you got to capture their attention, meaning they aren't going to say yes to a purchase pattern then. So I just think it's like if you have those different layers and components, knowing that where you're playing in that person's mind, your ideal customer viewer, either needs to be an instant yes or it needs to be some kind of logic chain for them to do business with you. Know how many touch points it takes, track your metrics. And I would say those would be my tips around, definitely more than 2 or 3, but those would be my tips around like just having a better thought process on how to start monetizing like your Instagram platform.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So Diana, we know I think your favorite channel is YouTube right now.
Yeah.
So YouTube offers ad revenue sharing. What are some other ways your business can monetize your YouTube presence? Because you got to get to 1,000 and 4,000 subscribers, 4,000 view hours, but there's other ways, right?
Yeah, you have stuff like Super Chat, and those like they offer pretty much is either the YouTube AdSense for monetizing your YouTube channel, or something like that. It's some other type of giving like Super Chats, which is while you're live, people have in the chat bar where at the right they'll see the ability to have this money icon. You click on it, whatever card that you have associated with your like Google account or Gmail account, then you can charge that card and send money to that person. Only problem with all these respects of using Google's system on YouTube, all of these are going to take a hit. It's always going to be a percentage cut. And most people think about monetizing YouTube from once I get to that 1,000 and then I'll start making money. And I think that's the wrong approach. Let that be the very last way that you make money on YouTube, because if you're an entrepreneur, you already have a business and your business has to solve a problem in order to make money, let's start being a solution for what you already are doing and presenting that, because chances are the income is higher. You're able to sell and scale that faster than any kind of ads that you're getting. You're getting pennies on the dollar essentially when it comes to the ad sharing revenue on YouTube. So if you're an entrepreneur, it should be very easy to make money on YouTube because you should already be able to make money outside of YouTube. Now what we're doing is positioning you to be able to make money by getting more exposure, answering questions, solving problems, things that you're already doing, maybe just in different respects. Maybe you have a blog, a podcast, you do a couple Facebook Lives. Now we're just introducing ways that you can find your people on YouTube to start monetizing. So the biggest payoff is if you take clients, getting you more clients. If you are offering a service, getting people to see value in the service to do business with you. And then like that last thing on all the list of ways you already make money on YouTube is to let YouTube now pay you for the ads that are paying or get super chats or something like that. So I just think if you have that mindset shift, making money on YouTube is a lot easier because you're not waiting on YouTube's once a month check to hit your bank account.
Yeah, I love this. Absolutely love this last question that you answered. I mean, a lot of people go into it thinking, yeah, like they want to get that YouTube like subscriber count and watch time so they can get that, oh, they're going to all of a sudden start getting a bunch of money. And it doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. It's very, very, very minuscule for the most part, the amount of revenue that you generate from a YouTube channel until you hit those much, much, much higher levels. So love that example. Jem, are there any more questions for her or anything you have questions on maybe?
Well, I think you hit on something, Diana, in the sense that, do you think even, because you love talking about behavior and it's something that I really like how you talk about that, but it's like as a YouTube creator, do we then fall into this, like, I got to get subscribers and fall into this, I got to get people to sign up, as opposed to, it's almost like when, oh, I'm going to invite all my friends to like my Facebook page. Well, they don't really care. They're just doing it because they like you. And it's kind of the same thing with subscribers. You genuinely want people, like you mentioned to us the other day, that are interested in the content that you're providing that's solving a problem. So don't get caught up in, oh, I got to get to 1,000. I think that's a huge thing. I mean, do you see that as where people are too focused on the numbers as opposed to what they're doing?
Absolutely, because they're trying to do and push metrics, and it's like they always. I never not come across somebody that is like, well, if I do more content, like, what if I post a video every day for 30 days? What do you think? And it's just like, you're not going to force YouTube to pay attention to you. YouTube pays attention to you when your focus is paying attention to other people. When you understand that YouTube is not built for the creator, it's built for the viewers. And the more that an individual creator is creating content that is specifically around the interests of a specific and ideal person, then YouTube knows exactly who to serve to you, because it's all based on service. And if you're being either your content is doing two things. Either you are self-centered or you're being service-centered. It's never both. Either you're being self-serving or your content is serving people. The more that you create content that actually serves people, it serves and delivers something to an audience of value, you can make money. I was making a couple $100 even when I still worked my job, even when I was still under 500 subscribers. That was good enough for me because that meant a day or so at work, I didn't have to, it's like if I didn't work that day, I still was getting paid, or I still had my content paying for, let's say, a tool in the business. So it was already starting to produce something for me. And if we really, if we think about it, as far as we think subscribers, yeah, these are individual people that even if you have 30, it's hard for people to get 30 people in a room. So if you think about it from the point of that, then you start to value even those smaller numbers. So you can still make good money with lower subscribership counts, because what you need to pay attention to is how long are people watching and how long are they watching the content through. If people aren't watching your content for that long, then you're missing something, or there's something like we talked about the Instagram ads in between the IGTV and that transition from them being in the news feed to now watching the full video. And there's a pattern interrupt there, misplaced pattern interrupt, mind you. We're doing the same thing with our content. If we're missing the boat, So I think if you start paying attention more to the average view duration, meaning on average, how long are people watching your content, the more you'll value that. Because if you look at the amount of hours that people are sitting and watching your stuff, you would never get people to sit and listen to whoever's at the front counter in your company or the CEO talk about, they would never listen for that long. But when you produce content that addresses a pain point, a problem that they're having, they will watch
Mm-hmm.
you for hours and hours. That honestly equals up to months and years worth of minutes. And that is way more powerful than just them saying that initial yes, I want to see more. That's all a subscriber is saying, yes, I want to see more of what you're producing. I want to come back here.
Great,
Love this.
great point.
Man,
Yep.
wow. So we're going to make sure we get all this written up and we put in the blog post recap that will go out this weekend. Jim, do we have any more questions for her? Or we want to move on to tool time?
No, let's move on to tool time because we could talk to Diana all day.
Absolutely. Okay. So while we're moving to our third act, which is tool time, we're going to now talk about a couple of tools that we think might be able to help you as a business owner. Again, we don't always we just bring up tools just for the sake of bringing them up. We try to find ones that might be new, might be fresh, something that you may not have heard of. So, Jim, what's the first tool that we have this week?
Yeah, so the first tool we have, Christian, is Prism, Prism Live Studio, which is available on the App Store for Apple. Of course, we're Apple fans, so sorry to you Android folks if it's not available out there. But it allows you to create some live, they call it a live studio. It lets you do some really interesting things with your videos and your photos to really kind of do it all within your phone, which I think is, even the new iPhone 12 that's coming out, which I can't wait to get. My wife's even going to get the mini. She likes red, and so she's excited they're making a red phone. But you can literally produce a 4K quality movie on your phone. So if you've got apps like Prism, which is available for free, you can do a bunch of stuff with it. As you can see here, they're showing, you can go live, edit your video, add graphics, all right there within the phone. So I think this is really another great way to do this. It's got some good reviews. I haven't used it yet because I keep adding all these apps because I watch your all these things you tell me I should use, Christian, and so I've got app overload.
Yeah, I will say this. I mean, the other thing I also like about these apps a lot of times is, and we talked about this earlier. I can't remember I think it was actually last week, Jen. We talked about round tripping on apps and whatnot. And so, if somebody, for example, you want to start getting your feet wet with live video, Prism Live Studio might be a good place to start. You can start going live there, and then adds different elements to your videos to make stand out a little bit more. Because, for example, like we're doing an video here. And so in this case, we've got a few elements that we add in. We've got, as you've seen, we've got some segments that come up, some overlays. And so those work great, but they don't work for every type of video. And sometimes people want to take things, up a notch or two. So definitely check out Prism Live Studio if you're interested in getting into doing some live video from your phone. Diana, anything you want to add on this particular app? Have you had a chance to play with it?
I haven't. It's on my list of tools to try. I got the have a lot of phones right now for some reason, but so Google sent me out the Pixel 5, the 4A. I just got an iPhone 11, and I have my old phone, which is the iPhone 7. So I have a lot of apps that I'm downloading right now. That's one of them to try. So I've only seen some content on it. That D. Nimmin, he's great when it comes to how to do a lot of things with your phone when it comes to video creation. So that's definitely one of the ones that has stood out to me to test and try out. But I think it's a great option, and I really think honestly, it limits people's excuses when it comes to creating content of, well, I can't do this and I can't do that, because from what I've seen, it can do a lot of things. So it just makes it that much easier to do and produce great looking live video content from your phone.
And Jem, I know you always like talking about how people you need to use they're a desktop for the most part for live video. There are certain instances where live video on mobile can work. And so, in this case, this like your phone is extremely powerful to the point where it can do a lot of things that your computer, for example, may not be able to do because it needs that certain camera, for example,
Mm.
adding in those effects over top of somebody. For the most part, if you did that on a laptop, you would have to go into some editing software, add that sort of thing in your video, do some rendering. So it's not like a quick task. So that's where like having some of these tools can be very useful. What's the second tool we have this week, Jim?
Yeah, so the second tool is this broadcast .me, and I'll tell you, I watched the video. Of course, I will have to say I had to laugh that they could have picked a better voice for the guy that was explaining it.
Yeah, it
But
was a little dry.
this is a very fascinating tool, and unfortunately, they didn't show us the pricing. But if you're running a news organization, what I really caught out of this was the idea of being able to, at 3G and 4G, capture video, send it up to the
Mhm.
cloud, brings it into this production system, and
Right.
allows you to create these amazing, basically newsworthy items for your team. So I think that it looks really great. Like I said, I have no idea, how much it costs. They didn't tell us this, but definitely looked like something that maybe some of your smaller news agencies, you still have some of these home small town newspapers. Maybe they want to start to create some digital content. This might be a way for them to do it without breaking the bank. But I mean, you can add, you know, uh, on the back end once you put these videos up, you could add graphics in there. You can edit
Mhm.
stuff. So I thought it was really a fascinating tool. I just wish they had a more exciting guy reading their video.
Yeah, I thought this was a really cool app. I mean, again, it's a great way to crowdsource news content, but I could see it also being useful, for example, for other things. So, for example, you could have, for example, if you're a business and you're at an event, you could use it to crowdsource people that are doing some live video, and then that way you don't have to put out. The approach most people would take is they would send out something after the event. Hey, did you take any footage? Or they might do it during the event. And people, if again, I'm also thinking from a physical event standpoint, but if people were in a physical or virtual event, this allows you to put out that call to action while the event's going on and capture that instead of let me wait until after the event or let me
Mm.
try to get this during the event. And a lot of times it can be really hard to get that because people are they're focused on that moment. So I think it's a little app. So that's why we brought it up this week. Anything you want to add about this one, Diana?
It looks interesting. I've seen some integrations. Like for example, I got a chance to shoot last year. This when it was the St. Louis Rams, but we're not going to get into the Rams transition to another state. But it was for some previous Rams football players. It was a gala event, and one of our local news stations was there, and they had absolutely had an iPhone built up with a little light, and he was holding the traditional microphone just in front of the football players, and capturing that content, and that made it to the news segment, and you could not tell the difference. So the ability to, if you're hosting an event, for example, integrate that with being able to go to somebody that's located someplace else. For an entrepreneur, if you're doing and you're hosting your own event, even if it's a small event, I think it's an interesting dynamic to be able to add. They unfortunately didn't add like a whole bunch of different like use cases on the web page and stuff like that to kind of help people be able to see how they can use it. And again, like I said, there's no pricing. So, it's interesting to see. I would love to see some more on it for sure. So I think it has a big ceiling if it wants to keep going.
Right. Like I
Definitely.
could see, like to your point, Christian, especially like when we have storms, and it makes me think of my friend Jennifer Watson. Like you could have people sharing, like, hey, here's, what's going on in our neck of the woods right now. Feed
Mhm.
that right to the news studio. And a lot of times, a lot of these news stations have the separate like weather app where they could be feeding this video into that app, like, hey, here's some of our local, in a sense, unpaid news reporters showing us some of what's going on in their neck of the woods with these storms.
And it cuts down on travel costs, which obviously those are kind of non-existent right now, but cuts down on a lot of that. Cuts down on helps reduce, like, nothing against people traveling to places. It reduces the need for them to have to travel, because travel is not just like, hey, I get to go and take a vacation. There's a lot involved. 3-hour flights, like a lot more than 3 hours. It's a flight there. It's all the time to get there, the time to come back. So I think it's a much more efficient way to do things. Because again, I mean, with a little bit of training, I think you can get people in that area to actually give you good quality footage, provided they have the right tools and just the right training and education on it. So that is Broadcast Me. Okay, so I think that's actually all the topics we have for this week, right, Jen?
Yep, absolutely.
So, Diana, so it's been a pleasure having you on both twice this week on our future episode of Launch Your Live, the podcast, and also on episode 264 of our social media marketing talk show, Social Chatter. What's the best place for people to get in touch with you? Have any questions or they want to learn more about you? Maybe they just want to geek out.
Definitely want to go to dinagladney.com. There's all of my different ways that you can communicate with me on there. If you want to hit up on the DMs, then that would be on Instagram at Diana Gladney. And then, of course, if you search my name on YouTube, you'll see my YouTube channel, Entree Woman TV. And there are tons of videos there if you want to get into cameras and all that.
Fantastic. And Jem, if people want to get in touch with you, they have questions, Twitter, website, what's the best place?
Yeah, Twitter and LinkedIn are the two best places to get a hold of me right now. But I will say that people like Diana are inspiring me to start to get some content out there on my YouTube channel, because I do realize there's a lot of things I talk about, but I never make it into a YouTube video, and so to help them solve problems, because I think that's a key thing, right? We're problem solvers. It's not about me, and that's one of the things I really love about the stuff that Diana puts out there. And just a pleasure to have you join us today, Diana.
It's been such an honor to sit with you guys again, and just really be able to talk about business and video. Such an honor. So thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a week from this upcoming Monday, we will have the episode with Diana released on the Launch Your Live podcast. So you definitely want to listen to that. She dropped a lot of value. Great time having you on the podcast.
My pleasure.
And so that's going to do it for Social Chatter episode 264. Just a couple of quick notes. We're going to have the blog post recap that'll go out soon at socialchefs.com/SC264. And remember, there's also going to be an Alexa flash briefing and podcast version as well. And next week, we're going to be joined by Brooke Sellis at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. She's going to be joining us. We're going to be streaming that on youtube.com/socialchefs or facebook.com/socialchefs. Until then, we will see you all next week. For watching, everyone. And Jim, you want to roll credits?
You got it.